Hey guys, I'm back here in the shop, and I got something cool that I want to do today with something that's kind of special to me, and I'll tell you why. So what we have here in front of us is the Schrade. The model number is the SCHF52. I'm not a big fan of Schrade folding knives. A lot of them I think are, well, they're just not very good knives, but some of the fixed blades that they put out are just big, tough beasts, and this is one of them. Now, why are we not doing a straight-up unboxing on this one? Because I just couldn't wait. This knife was sent to me by, honestly, my best friend in the world. Literally, we grew up together on the mean streets of New York, in a very lovely neighborhood in Queens. So anyway, this guy, his name is Adam, is a couple years younger than me, and now towers over me, like a foot taller than me, and has about 50 pounds on me. We did the volunteer department stuff together, paramedic stuff together, working in the ER together, and he was smart enough to go on and continue the medical world when I went off to the military. So he's a hell of a guy. He's awesome. He's actually one of my Patreon team members. He watches my channel and everything. Awesome dude. Love him to death. And he sent me a couple of Schrade fixed blades to take a look at on the channel around the holiday time. And this was one of them. So I couldn't wait. Now you will see the full unboxing of the other one shortly if you haven't seen it already. This one is a bit bigger than the other one. And it's a great large piece of metal, which is a really good canvas for us to do some work here in the shop with. It's a great piece to show you how we do some of the stuff we do, specifically with one of the mossy oak knives that we did recently, and we really had a good reception, and show everybody how we do what we call a freeform camouflage or a freehand camouflage with Cerakote. And then I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to put the Cerakote and this knife through a hard use test, just to show kind of how durable the Cerakote finish is. I have no idea what's going on in the background over there, but it's a busy shop, so I think it might be an interesting process to watch. I'm going to use a camouflage pattern, like I said, the camouflage pattern that people liked. It's not a real military camouflage pattern, it's just one that I kind of came up with on the fly here one day, just messing around with a knife. I think it looks good. Some other people thought it looked good. Might not be the most practical thing, but it's it's more for looks on the blade and to put a Cerakote coating on to protect that blade. Especially keeping in mind this is 1095 carbon steel, so it needs a protective coating to help with the corrosion resistance. Okay, let's start by looking at the knife though, guys. Okay, so it's a nice, large, heavy knife. Now the sheath is ballistic nylon, or advertises ballistic nylon. Adjustable belt loop, but that's really all you have. Now, like I would say, if you're slick and you can do some tailoring and everything, you can rig this up different ways, but you really only have the single belt loop to go with right there. But what's cool is it comes with, in this pouch, you've got a decent sized ferro rod with a fairly heavy striker, right? Not a flimsy little one, which is cool. And then inside also a very fine diamond, I won't even say sharpening stone, but this is more of like a honing stone, but something to maintain the edge. And it's, again, it's nice that it's large. You can hold it without risking your fingers too bad if you're clumsy like me. But it's cool that it comes with it right in the package. Now, if you don't want to carry that around, not a whole lot of room, but if you feel inside it's rubberized, so weatherproofed, you could put, I don't know, survival gear, fire starting, whatever you want in that pouch. And it is a fairly large pouch, because of the size of the sheath overall. Snap lock closure, a little loose, but it's going to hold that knife in there pretty well. I feel like when I'm holding this, I have to pay some royalties over to Crocodile Dundee and say, now that's a knife. So, like I said, big old hunk of 1095 carbon steel. It's got really nice weight to it, good balance, little front heavy, for your chopping tasks, but that's part of that good balance. Really nice choil up there, so if I wanted to choke up on this a little bit, it feels good. I really want to use it. Rubberized scale, so that's going to have to come off. I mean, it's going to come off anyway. It's a full tang. So to do what I want to do today, that's going to have to come off. But I mean, I wouldn't want to put this in the oven. I was working on another knife where I didn't realize there's a plastic insert, and I melted it. So there are ways to do Cerakote at lower temperatures, but it's just easier to remove stuff like that. So you got a little bit of a hollow grind on the blade, which makes it pretty good for your slicing tasks. And again, the weight and the balance being a little front heavy will help you with your chopping. So in terms of outdoors bushcraft, blade is a little bit big in my opinion, and 1095, great high strength carbon steel for a survival, fieldcraft knife, used in a lot of military issue or military contracted knives. The coating that's on here, of course, has to come off. I don't know what it is. I'm not a big fan of it anyway. I think it's like a PVD type coating. I'm not entirely sure. We're going to take that to the sandblaster though and get that off. So the first part of this process is to remove these rubberized scales. So there's one. This is rubber over molded plastic all the way through. And there's the other one. And this is basically one big billet here of 1095 carbon steel. And that's what you want to see in a knife like this. That's good strength all the way through. So we are going to put the camouflage pattern on the entire thing. That gives us options. So we can then put these scales back on, or if we wanted to, we could, with these holes placed the way they are, great opportunity to do a 550 cord, a paracord wrap on that handle instead. We could put the scales on and then change our mind later. But we're going to do the we're going to do the Cerakote all the way across the entire length of this steel. So next step is to take this to the sandblaster and remove the old coating so we can get ready to put the new coating on. Fresh out of the sandblaster. All raw exposed metal. So I've said this before on some other videos, but this is an important step because the Cerakote bonds with the metal. So we need to get exposed metal, and the microscopic, rough surface of the sandblasting helps the molecules in the Cerakote and the ceramic coating grab onto that metal surface. And that's what gives it that, really awesome permanent bond. The next step is to give it a quick wipe down with acetone to help remove any kind of oils, or, it came kind of coated in a grease to help prevent any corrosion in the box or during storage. So we want to get rid of all that. So I'm going to wipe it down with acetone, and then I'm going to put it in the oven at about 300 degrees for about an hour to what we call sweat, which is to bring any kind of oils or anything like that to the surface so I can give it one more wipe down. Try to get this metal as pure as possible. We don't want anything to prevent the Cerakote from bonding, which is why also we won't be touching it with bare skin from this point forward either, because we don't want any of the oils or any kind of contaminants on our skin to get on the middle of the blade. So I've got to occupy myself for about an hour now in the shop while I'm waiting for this to go through the sweating process in the oven. Out of the oven and ready for working. It's actually a fairly simple process. We're going to take masking tape and we're going to cover the length of the blade with it, which does get a little tricky sometimes when you're wearing gloves. Make sure we get a new, fresh, sharp blade on our knife here. And we're going to do that on the other side too. Now to all mask off, the really fun part is just basically drawing yourself a camouflage pattern on there at random. I like to make sure that there is an odd number of sections on each side, and honestly, I just pick a side and start squiggling. The size and shape of these little patterns is entirely, you know, artistic, if you will. Alright, let's see, let's count our sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I forgot to count, but that just works out perfectly. So the two colors I'm going to be doing that I usually do are foliage green and a coyote brown or tan. So I'll just start labeling these from the front with a T and a G to remind me as I'm going. Oops. And the reason I like to do the number is so that on any given side you start with the one color and you end with the same color. I just think it's a nice symmetry there. I'll turn it over and we'll do the same thing. Now I'm not trying to make these lines match up to the other side at all. You'll notice it's not what I'm doing here. Just making them random completely as I go. So now that we got both sides marked, the fun part is taking this little blade here and jigsaw cutting all these pieces of tape out so that we can peel them as we need to paint. Now we've got both sides marked, the fun part and the tricky part, and the part where I'm likely to slice into a finger, is to carefully jigsaw cut all these little pieces so that we can peel them as we need to, coat one color, flash it so that we can cover them back up, peel the other color, flash it, then we can get ready to do our kind of contrasting, our sort of, I don't know what you call it, the color that goes in the middle, which will be black, which will break up the outline in between these colors at random places. So this is where I want to be really careful and start at one end and just cut along these lines as carefully as I can. You know, I'll try my best to follow the lines as closely as I can. It doesn't have to be exact. This is why starting with a new blade is really important. It really helps, especially since we're basically pushing this nice sharp tip right into carbon steel metal, so by the time we're done, this blade's going to be pretty much useless. Well, that was honestly not fun, but I've got everything cut and traced, so now just going to randomly, I'm going to start with the coyote tan because that's what I'm going to start with. So all I got to do is kind of peel these sections up, and it can be a challenge to make sure we don't rip them. I'll just place them right here to hold on to them while we're working with the rest of the knife. In order for this to work right, we need these pieces to stay intact, so you gotta be kind of gentle with them, pulling them up. this is kind of, I call the administrative side of doing this. It's fun to actually put the coating on and see it come out of the oven later, but getting all this done is kind of a crucial step to getting it done right. Okay, there we go. And these complicated ones, while I love to draw them out and think like, oh, this will look great on the knife, these are the hard ones that we call this the weeding, to get all of these little pieces up when we're using stencils and such. Very hard to weed correctly. Okay, all done. Much easier here because this is where I first started cutting the stencil, and so, you know, obviously the knife, the little scalpel blade dulls quick when cutting against hardened carbon. But we're going to do all the spine in that tan color and the underside as well. You'll see how we'll work that out with the green later. All of our stencil pieces are aligned and ready to lay back on top of the tan when it's flashed. We're ready to do the green portion. So here is the left side, and here is the right side. And I am going to go mix up the Coyote Tan and get this coated and give it a 15-minute flash to harden the Cerakote. It's not fully cured yet until we get everything done, but then I'll let you see it as we put the stencils back on and then peel the green. This is the finished Coyote Tan, and it wraps all the way around. So the process now is to put these pieces of the stencil I made back on in between what's already on there. I tried it in the past to take this off and then place this first. Sometimes that can leave little gaps, so it's just easier to put what we've got back on using the tape that's still on the knife as a guide, and then we'll be able to take this off and then give it the next coat, which is going to be green, and then I'll show you how we're going to take care of the spine and the underside. And then what's kind of fun and just a little bit complicated is how we do the black in between. So with the second color done, the second coat, you see I just kind of did a freehand across the top to make it colorful. We can take the rest of this masking off. You just want to be careful not to scratch the color beneath. It's hardened, but it's not cured. So we can work with it, we can touch it, but it's not got the full Cerakote protection yet. That comes from curing in the oven for the full time. And that is how you do kind of a freehand camouflage. But we're going to do one more color to this using some kind of extra old stencils left around from other projects. So what I need to do now is continue to get the masking tape masks off, and you wouldn't want to use this for, I've made the mistake of like full cure time in the oven. Does not come out well. Lots of crusty old masking tape sticking to everything and not wanting to come off. But see, we've got all of our lines there. You just got to be a little careful of how you take it off. It's going to be a little bit noisier for this last part of the video, so we've got some machinery stuff going on in the background. So here it is, unmasked, with our two primary colors. You may notice some areas where the tape overlapped a little bit and we ended up with some bare metal showing. That's cool, because that just helps guide us and figure out where we're going to put the black on this. But you can see as we go, everything is coming along pretty nicely. So for this last step with this last color, what I like to do is we're going to use some leftover stencils that we've cut on the vinyl plotter here of all various sizes. These ones are pretty big. We've got some that are kind of small here. And what I'm going to do is, you know, these are some from multicam patterns, some from old woodland patterns, whatever. But I'm going to be using the female parts here. And the reason I'm using this instead of masking tape is because, you know, this being the final step, this is actually what's going to go in the oven for the cure time, which is going to be high temperature for about an hour. The masking tape it does not do well at that temperature anyway. And it becomes very difficult with adhesive baked on, and it doesn't like to come off. So I'm going to use these parts to mask off the black and decide where it's going to go. And then I'm going to use some high temperature tape to mask off the rest of the blade. So really all I'm going to do is take these stencils and put them in places kind of surrounding the green and the tan, and give us some very interesting little patterns. I might use them as a whole, I might cut them up and make new shapes out of them depending on where they're going to go. So like for instance this section right here, I'm just going to make sure that I am covering any exposed bare metal in that area, and that's going to be a black section right there. Now I'm going to kind of trim because there was some exposed metal on the top, so I might even cut this here. And then I can use another one on the top to cover this area here. So I'm going to set this whole thing up with stencils. I'm not going to do every single area that, every border between the tan and the green. I want it to be uneven throughout, but you'll see it again before I do the black coat, and then you'll see it again when it comes out of the oven. So everything is taped up and ready to go. So now I don't mind touching this with bare hands. You can see I have some of the areas masked off that are going to be covered by the handle scales, but since we do have bare metal under there, I want to make sure they're coated and protected anyway for two reasons. Number one, we might decide to do that handle wrap with 550 cord or whatever, and take the scales off, but I want to make sure this high carbon steel is protected no matter what. So these little areas will get the Cerakote. But everything is ready to go, ready to get coated. So I'm going to fire up the oven to have it ready for cure when I'm done hitting these little areas with the black. And we'll see the finished result soon. We are out of the oven. We had some time to cool. You can see some of the plastic stencils shrunk a little bit, but now that it's all cured, we can touch it with bare hands and everything. So we can just start peeling all of this off and see what we've got. I have had to clear off, tape and stencils and all sorts of stuff off this table a whole bunch during this project. Constant cleaning, but you can see how the high temperature tape cleans off so much easier, and so does this the vinyl that the stencil's made up of. So now if we need to use the blade to help us, we don't have to be, you still want to be careful, but not nearly as careful, because fully cured Cerakote is so much tougher than just the hardened Cerakote, after a flash. But you're starting to see our full pattern sort of come to life underneath all of the tape and stencil and stuff. So to make a lot of these shapes match the contours of the colors, I took those stencils, like I said, I cut them up, I took pieces and fit them here and there, so they're not just the straight stencils from the sheet. They are, as you can see as I start to take it off, they're bits and pieces laid on top of other bits and pieces, just to give that custom look that I needed to make everything work. There's one side complete. Alright, and here's the opposite side. And then on the top you can see just gave some wisps of each color on the bottom. So as I've been saying, if we wanted to just give it a 550 cord wrap, we'd be ready to do that, but I'm going to go get a screwdriver and we are going to put these scales back on to give it a nice firm grip for when we decide to test it out. So let me get that going. So here we are with a nice pile of shavings here from all of the stencils we used, but the grip is back on. It is a really nice rubberized grip. Very, very grippy. So, we've changed nothing on the knife itself except the protective coating there. The Cerakote it's not an absolute, magic armor vest, but it is a bulletproof vest in a gunfight. It is going to protect against most damage. Sooner or later, even Cerakote will wear, will scratch, will scrape, but it is kind of the best of what's out there at protecting, a lot of stuff. I really like this pattern. Again, like I said before, it's not a real camouflage pattern. It's probably not that effective in most environments, but I like the look of it, and I think it's more interesting than just a single color sprayed on a blade. It's not finished yet, though. We need to go to the laser and put some markings on this to show where we did this work. We could leave it like this. It's still marked Schrade, but, I like playing with the laser, honestly. So, let's go do that. It's a little challenging to line this up flush and square with the lines of the knife because the spine has a slight downward slope. We've got a little bit of an angle here, so, it is what it is. I think I've done a good job here. So what I can do is with the laser software, I can show the contours of what we're about to do. And there's a lot of graphics here, so it's moving kind of slowly. So we've got the Patriot Armory and Coatings crest right there, and then we've got my .P91B. And it looks about good. We can also kind of show a big red box of where it's going to lay in, and I like where that's going. And let's let it go. I love watching that. I love listening to it. All the sparks you see flying off, that's actual metal material that the laser's blowing out of the knife. So let's run that again, see if we can get that a little bit deeper. Now we have all sorts of settings we can change. The loop count, which is how many times the laser goes around in each cycle, the speed at which the laser moves, the power setting, the frequency of how many pulses per second the laser does. So we can change a lot of stuff. I think I'm going to change the loop count just a little bit, make it burn a little bit longer each time. Just get this set up here and let's go. So what I've done is set a longer loop count, which is why it's taking a little bit longer on each portion of the design. You can see some more sparks coming out. More metal being blasted out of that knife. It's pretty hot right now in the laser. I'm just trying to feel how deep we've gotten it. And I'm going to let that go again. I just want to get those images really well engraved into the blade, past the Cerakote. I think those are good. Nicely done. Now, because I have decided that this is going to be a personal project, I'm going to put some personal stuff on the face side of this knife.